Opening up to someone can be an incredibly scary thing. It's a time of vulnerability, showing a part of yourself that isn't pretty and isn't easy. Naturally, we don't really want to put ourselves in a state of vulnerability very often, or in situations where we don't feel emotionally safe. Therefore, there are certain times and places conducive to opening up. The first things that come to mind are close friends and relationships, because these are people who we trust and feel we can confide in. But even then, there's a risk to opening up to our inner circle, since they know who we are and what we hold dear. With this in mind, there is actually an intimacy to what separates us. Sometimes, the feeling of having some sort of barrier, whether that be physical or virtual, gives us the emotional safety to open up. Strangers online or across the world can be that safety. From virtual reality to pen pals to a trip to Maine, let's take a look at intimacy through distance. Sometimes, the safest places are those that are the most distant. When put in an environment where we are no longer tied to our normal life's reputation, we can get things off our chest without that social risk. VRChat is your way to communicate as whoever or whatever you want to be. It is a multiverse of locales and communities unrestricted by identity.
Aren't you worried that you're going to miss out on certain important life experiences from being homeschooled?
That did cross my mind, but VR is a way to escape, Like I can be a frog. Kermit was literally my childhood hero. When I was like 6, for 2 hours, I got pieces of paper and built a fully functioning Kermit puppet that I love to make friends in VR. And they might treat me a bit differently based on my voice, but they won't treat me differently based on my height, based on the way I look. It's really, I'd say, the closest form of anonymity that isn't anonymous you could get.
Now, safe to say, the purpose of VRChat was not made for therapy and should not be treated as such. Most of the time, it is just a hub to talk, to banter and socialize in whatever normal or abnormal ways you'd like to present yourself through. It's weird and it's out there, but fundamentally, you are able to talk to people without being bound to any expectations of who you are or where you come from. And so, VRChat creates a safe haven, maybe completely unintentionally, where people can speak about their life candidly. That's what Syrmor's YouTube channel documents. Stories from people around the world willing to share in a space that feels oddly comforting.
Days that I have to take a shower, it's a very nervous time for me because I know it's gonna go really bad, because it always goes bad, because it's very painful. Usually when I'm taking off my bandages, it's just a world of pain and suffer.
I always dreamed to travel Europe before. Right now I'm struggling to get a job right now.
Syrmor's videos let people from all walks of life have a chance to say what they've needed to say. And they feel okay to do so because there's distance to the person they're talking to. You are in some surreal corner of the internet with cartoon animals and characters from movies and anime. The abnormality of it all lets people drop the protective shield that comes with one's identity.
So anytime I get sad, there's a part of my brain that expects to go to her for comfort. That's been a very hard thing to deal with. I'm usually a very conservative person in the sense of talking about things, and this talking on VRChat about these kind of things is very out of character for me. But I wanted to do it because I feel like I don't want what we had to kind of die with me. It feels good to talk about it as opposed to I could just simply not talk to anyone and kind of just shut myself off and just die eventually, and but I think that wouldn't be fair. And she always wanted me to be more open.
Talking doesn't mean we'll have all our problems magically solved, but it's important to talk about uncomfortable things in whatever medium we feel comfortable enough in. There is something to say about leaving a place for a bit to reflect. I think it's because when you're involved in your daily cycle of life, it's hard to think outside of it. By leaving the places that are your normal, you can then take a moment to reflect on that cycle from the outside. So take a seat with some seemingly silly characters in a virtual space and share what's on your mind.
If you could tell everyone in the world one thing, what would it be?
It just sounds super corny, but no matter how much you love someone, you could easily just lose them one day. So you really have to make sure your priorities are straight, and that you really make sure that every day is doing something to love that person.
While much more accessible through the internet, intimacy through distance is not a new thing. Pen pals have been a form of letter writing to distant strangers, more or less. Dating back to the 1930s, you could write to someone across the world who you've never met before. But with that, you can talk about anything, as everything you say will stay in some distant country and culture, never to return back to you. YouTuber Austin McConnell had a video experiment on pen pals. 675 of them, in fact. By replacing social media with letter writing, Austin and his correspondents found catharsis in sending their thoughts to somewhere unknown.
So the one thing I read over and over in this massive pile was, I've never written a letter before, but just writing it has helped me. Lots of people told me about their lives, who they were, where they worked, what their plans for the year were, their struggles, their fears, their anxieties, and even though a lot of letters started dark by the end, most of them seem to be looking on the brighter side of things. There's something therapeutic about writing out your uncertainties. When you put it on paper, it takes a problem that seems immeasurable and it puts a frame around it. There's power in itemizing your worries. When you're writing somebody, especially a stranger, you're not just endlessly meditating about every problem in your life. You are outlining and defining the events of your personal story.
Similarly, the internet can be a good void to write and send letters to. In fact, there's a game called Kind Words, meant specifically for anonymous correspondence. When you open the game up, you're greeted by a friendly, letter-delivering deer who explains how the astoundingly simple system works. Write kind words to strangers. Write letters if you yourself would like some kind words. Everything stays anonymous, and any challenge or problem you have can be heard. It's a little corner of the internet where you can find kindness and solace. Every so often, I hop into the game and see how helpful it can be. You read through these letters and realize that while everyone is going through different situations, the problems are shared experiences. Whether it's big, overbearing feelings of being stuck or losing something dear to you, or more specific challenges like setting boundaries at work or fixing a sleep schedule. These are all obstacles in life that you've likely encountered or are currently encountering today, in some form or another. And in a cozy digital room with lo-fi hip-hop running in the background, you feel comfortable with writing a letter and receiving some too. Because of how complicated life gets, you're not going to be able to solve someone's difficulties. Similarly, writing down your own isn't going to magically solve things either. But it sure helps to throw something difficult out there and have someone, it doesn't matter who, reply that your thoughts are valid. We've talked a lot about distance online, but physical distance works too. A couple weeks ago, I made an impromptu trip from my home in Maryland to Acadia National Park in Maine, 700 miles up north. I was feeling a bit stuck. The months prior, I had been swamped with work and was feeling so burnt out. I needed a change of pace. So I went with a friend who had been feeling a bit stuck too, and off we went, 700 miles north to make distance. Without going into specific details, it was tremendously helpful. The space that the drive created let us talk about anything and everything. As old high school friends who went off to different colleges, we don't see each other much, which allowed us to open up about the people and events in our lives without risk. Furthermore, it takes two to be able to open up, and luckily, we were both more than willing to talk and to listen. Getting away was like pausing a movie after a very turbulent scene. It lets you put your life on hold, even if just for a moment, to reflect on what's happened. The trip was 12 hours there and 12 hours back. Safe to say, by the time it was over, I had processed my life scenes and events and felt ready to press on. So, whatever medium you find works, find distance when you need to. The weight of the world doesn't have to rest solely on you. Distance can help to see that and take some of that off your shoulders. Hi, my name is Perez, and just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. On this channel, we're going to be tying multiple stories into larger themes of life, and so if you enjoyed video essays like this one, please stay tuned because there's more to come.
Bye.